Wow. Can you believe how big this box is? Oh, man. So first, let me apologize about my voice. I've been sick for about a week now. Maybe it sounds better this way. I don't know. It just doesn't sound normal. But I've been wanting this new BenQ SW321C photographer's display since they announced it, which is, I think, over a year ago. And it finally arrived. And so I was really anxious to get it open. I didn't want to wait to do the video until I felt better. I don't feel terrible, but my voice is weird and my lungs are still pretty clogged up. But I thought, I'm going to get this thing open and see what it's like. Now, I've been using the 27-inch versions for a while, and I think for Lightroom and Photoshop, they're great. Capture One, they're great. I think they're plenty big enough. But for my video work, I wanted a little bit more space because I get multiple tracks in the timeline, and so suddenly it's starting to crowd the viewing area, which I like to keep at 1:1. And so I thought, well, I'll give this one a try. I'm used to 30-inch displays anyway, and I'm assuming that once I get it out of this box, it'll actually be similar in size to my current NEC 301W, which I'm going to replace with this. So rather than have you sit there and watch me unbox this thing, if this was a really cool new smartphone or some gadget like that, that's kind of fun to watch people take out of a box. After watching the last one, this is just a big monitor. So what I'm going to do is unbox it, and then I'll just show you what comes in the box so you know what it comes in it. I'll set it up side by side with the 27-inch so you can get an idea what the size comparisons there. Talk a little bit about it and what I think of it. I'm not going to show you how I profile it because it'll be identical to how I profile the 27-inch. I would use the same settings, so I'm just going to link that video on how to actually set up your profiles in the when I get there in the video and in the description down below. So anyway, let me get this thing out of the box and let's just see what it looks like. Okay, I've got it out of the box. As you can see, it's a little bit more usable size. I think that box was up to my chin. It doesn't have quite as thin a bezel as the 271 did, but it's still pretty thin. And size-wise, if I compare it to my 301 or 302, which is over here, bezel's maybe a little smaller than that, and it looks like it's about the same height. It's just going to be a little longer because it is a true 16:9, which is really helpful for screen capture video work. As far as what comes in the box, this one did actually come with its calibration paper, unlike the 271 I opened. This basically just gives you a bunch of numbers saying that how it was factory calibrated, even tells you the device they usually do it with. More of a formality just to let you know, hey, they do inspect these things and set each one up individually when they ship them. Comes with the DVD. I assume this has the Palette Master software. Maybe the Windows machines need a driver. Probably not. I'm guessing most computers will hook straight up to it without any drivers. But I just usually download this off the internet when I need it because, to be honest, I don't think I have anything to even read one of these anymore. As far as what's in the box besides that, it does have a hood. I put it away already. I don't put a hood on this because I don't have any light coming from behind to really get on the screen, and I can really control the light in my room when I work, so I don't really need the hood. So I'm not going to bother even pulling it out of the box. Comes with this interesting roller here. All I can guess, I'll have to see if I can find the manual online and look at it. I assume this is some kind of a tacky roller that helps you clean the screen. If I find it's different than that, I'll let you know when we get to the end of the video. It does come with a newly designed hotkey puck. I like how the 1, 2, and 3 are all along the bottom, much easier to get to. The other one was broken into 4. The middle is a knob, which is easier than the arrows, and then it's also a button. So I think it'll be easier to use to navigate your different functions. Most of the time, the only thing you're using this for is maybe switching from one calibration to another, but it's actually a really nice looking design as well. As far as cables, of course, you have a power cable. It comes with this USB, which is that large connector, USB 3 connector, so you can actually hook up the USB bus and access your USB slots that are in the monitor. This is a Displayport to mini Displayport, which is what used to be in the Macs. I don't think they have been in the Macs for several years now, but PCs are using these now. But I guess it's just to make sure that no matter how old your machine is, I could still use it on a Mac Pro, for example, the old Mac Pro. This is just a standard HDMI to HDMI cable. That's what your computer has to connect it with. This is a Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 3 style Displayport connector. So if you have a current Mac, that's what it's going to use. Maybe you've got a Thunderbolt 3 or a Displayport card in your Windows machine as well. And that's it for cables and what's in the box. As far as the display itself, like the older ones, it's easy to raise up and down. They have removed the little calibration arrow that was on the original 2700, which I liked, so you don't have a reference to get it back to the same height. It tilts pretty easy as well. And you can also, let me just turn this thing. So over here you can see the two USB ports, and then there's also an SD card slot, which I've actually used on occasion. One of the downsides of this is set back a long way from the edge. So it really is hard to reach around and find that USB slot compared to if they would have, I know they want this nice slim design, but I think they should have let this part of the case kind of swell out a little bit, so they could have got these right at the edge of the case so you could easily plug them in. That I think would have been an improvement in the design. But you don't plug stuff into it that often anyway. Mainly it's just your calibrator. Let me just lift it up and rotate the bottom, or rotate so you can see the bottom. I do like how that rotates. Now, one thing I've noticed is when I do that, you do want to rotate it out. I just noticed I put a little scratch in this. So you do want to make sure when you rotate it vertical, you spin it out of the way. It doesn't quite move up enough to clear if it's set. So these are the various ports on the bottom. Here's where you plug in your USB to get your USB hub to work. Next to that is your Thunderbolt 3 style Displayport port. And then next to that is your standard Displayport connector. You have two HDMI connectors here. This next little spot is where you plug in this little hotkey puck. And then the last spot, it says it's a service port. So I assume this is what they use when they're doing something in manufacturing or troubleshooting it. So something that actually as a user you won't use. So that kind of does it. Really nice display. I'm assuming I will be happy with it like I have been the other ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up next to my 27-inch BenQ, and I'll have all three displays set up, including, and I'm just going to do a little quick video to give you size comparisons and let you know kind of how get a feel for it. When I feel a little better, I'll put all that together and get this video online. Obviously, if you have any questions about anything I'm talking about, please feel free to throw a comment in there. I love to get suggestions and questions. When it comes to the profiling part, just check out this video up here in the corner where I actually go through the entire process of how I profile a BenQ, why I don't use Adobe RGB, which is what they recommend. I'm not sure. I don't understand their logic there. Why I use the panel native to set the full gamut, so that way I get 100% of the colors the display can actually show. And it's the right way to profile. That's how you profile an output device. Anyway, I'll be back in a minute when I get this all set up and give you an overview of how the three monitors look side by side. Okay, I'm back. I have my 32-inch BenQ set up here. I've got my NEC over here and the other one, and I'll show you a side by side in just a second. First, my voice. I'm still a little bit under the weather here. I'm feeling a little better, but I'm coughing a lot more. So if you see any weird jump cuts, you'll know what happened. Anyway, as far as the BenQ, I really like how it looks. It's really crisp. It's really clean. Good, rich colors, very comparable to my NEC. I have both of these, or all three are now calibrated to the same white point. And you'll notice right away that that doesn't match as far as the neutral gray. And that's one thing we'll talk about in just a second. As far as the resolution, I ended up with a 3008 by 1650 or something like that. Basically, with a 4K display, you just change the resolution as you're comfortable with the interface, most notably on the Mac, for example, how big the menu bar is. And at the 3008 by 1600 or whatever it is, the menu bar is about the same size as the 27-inch, and that is set at 2540 by or 2560 by 1440, somewhere in there. Now, interestingly enough, to make this interface comfortable, I end up with the exact same resolution as a non-4K display. And so if you're not going to really need to change the resolution for various tasks, then just a regular display will give you pretty much the same result. In my case, I want to be able to vary the resolution to change things for various tasks, and that's why I kind of went with it. I really like how much larger the document is on a 30-inch display compared to this one. I'm a little older, so I don't want to get quite as close to the screen. And I'm lucky that I can actually see quite well without glasses at a certain range. I've got kind of this weird deal where one eye is kind of can see close and one eye sees far. So I don't have to wear glasses very much, even though I'm rapidly sneaking up on 70 years old. Anyway, colors are really rich. I really like this particular target to use to analyze this stuff with because it has such a great amount of saturated colors as well as soft and subtle ones. It's a really good target to print. And right now, if I look at this and look at the print I've got hanging over in my display booth, they're really, really close. I mean, I really feel that I could get great results using this display. And I'm not sure if the Mac takes advantage of the fact that this is a 10-bit display or not. I know that used to be that was a debate. I need to research that. And I'm not sure if the latest operating system fully implements 10-bit display, which would really help. I don't know if you've ever noticed when you're doing a gradation or something like we've got across the bottom, if you see some kind of weird banding, and a lot of that's because it's only 8-bit and the display is only 8-bit, so 10-bit would help with that. I mean, this is really smooth right here, but I can see a little tiny bit of banding, which is pretty normal on the display, something I would not see when I printed the print. Anyway, let me show you a quick side-by-side that gives you an idea of how they compare. So here are the three side-by-side, and of course the obvious difference is in the gray tone. Now, if you isolate it to the print themselves, there's not as stark a difference in the color of the print versus the gray area around it, and that's sort of a phenomenon that's pretty normal. The camera exaggerates that a little bit, so it's not as pronounced as you see. It is enough that I can visually see the color difference quite obviously. And the other thing the camera is missing on is that it's the one that's actually the most neutral is the BenQ in the middle. It looks to me like it's very, very neutral in the gray, and the others are a little bit on the cool side. It's pretty clear from this that you can't just use some preconceived white point when you're trying to calibrate your display to your print, because even using the same white point does not give you consistent enough results between displays. So you really have to use a white point that gets a match to your print rather than try to use some predetermined white point such as daylight. Let me just zoom in to show you the two 30-inch displays side by side real quick. Gives you an idea of the size comparison. And you can see they're quite similar. The only difference is that being a little bit longer, the BenQ's got a true 16:9 ratio. And now here you can compare the 27 and the 32-inch BenQ as far as the size. I really think that the 27-inch is a great monitor for most people. I do like the extra size, and if you can afford it, it's certainly worth something to consider. If you're doing video work, it's also something that you might want to consider, because documents can get pretty complicated pretty fast with video. So if I wanted to get these two to match, what I would have to do would be to first calibrate one to my print. As I mentioned, the only way you can get a print to screen match is to make your screen match your print, because you can't change the print. You don't want to even mess with that. Once I get one match, then I would just start working with the profile on the other one, and I could definitely get this closer than it is now. But in my case, I really don't worry about it, because I only use one of the displays when I'm doing color critical work. I don't try to work with two. The other one is there for other stuff. You know, my email program sits on it, or I also usually keep it at sRGB. So if I'm actually making a file that's going to go to the web, I can drag it over there and see how the color works on it. So anyway, I recommend it. I don't know how readily available they are. They've just barely started to ship. Whenever Amazon does get them in stock, or you can buy them through Amazon, I'll throw a link down below. You can grab it from there. In the meantime, you'll just have to see who has it in stock and just check various dealers, the various sources. Appreciate you tuning into the video. If you have any questions about this monitor in general, I know this is a real general, not very specific thing, because I've already gone into so much depth on this one, and other than a few minor things, they're pretty much the same. I would mention two things that just came to mind though. Make sure when you're calibrating this, you do have to have the USB cable plugged in. In my case, I had this one plugged in, and I just assumed that I only needed one plugged in, because my calibrator was plugged into this one, and the software kept trying to write the LUT back to this one. One difference in these displays and other displays, and why there's so much money, is that it's a hardware calibrated device. So a lot of what happens is happening within the electronics of the display itself. So the LUT is actually written back into the display. It's not just sitting there in a profile on your computer. And so I'm assuming that to do that, it's got to be connected through the USB port, because that must be how it writes that data back in there. So make sure you actually do plug the USB port in before you try to calibrate it. Now, it could be it'll give you a warning if you don't do it. I don't know. And maybe I didn't get the warning because I still had this one plugged into the USB port, but I didn't plug this one the USB port. And really, it gave about an hour. I was trying to figure out what was going on. It was a real problem. The other thing I'll mention real quick is this, the new puck is really nice. If you use the audio output to drive some audio system, you can set the center dial to become a volume control, which is really handy. I like the layout of the 3 buttons to switch along the bottom, much easier to get to. I haven't set this one up. This I'll probably set up to be Rec 709, which is a video standard. But I really do like the ability to switch it. The sRGB is actually much better now, and I'm not sure what I did different. Maybe I just was a little more careful with the profile, but the sRGB looks more normal now once I've set it up on this one than it did when I did it on this one. And I think it certainly looks about the same as my NEC does when I go to sRGB. Well, anyway, that does it for this video. Hey, thanks again. See ya.